The Adelaide Hills are alive with the sounds of men and machines. As the world's best riders clamour for glory, only one is capable of shrugging off the many challenges. It's been Andre Greipel's tour of success, but there's still a long way before we reach the finish. Hello everyone and welcome to the Epic Cycle presented by Michelob Ultra. We're starting today in Norwood, which by car is about 15 minutes drive from the central business district of Adelaide in South Australia. Longest stage of the race, 150 kilometres to Goolwa. I'm Phil Liggett, alongside me is Paul Sherwin. And this is the South Australian Premier, Mike Rann, and ever present on this event.
Well, although it's warm and muggy at the start, Phil, I think a lot of the riders will be happy because it's predicted to be a lot cooler down towards the finish, although we are expecting blustery winds.
Yesterday's winner, Manuel Cardoso, the champion of Portugal, the only man to break the sprinting prowess, in fact, of Andre Greipel. This is how he did it. He got a 1 second advantage over the field in the last 500 metres for his first Pro Tour win. But the man who leads this race now, 14 seconds in hand over 3 chasing riders, is Greipel. 2 stage wins, unplaced yesterday as far as that was concerned, but he keeps the ochre jersey. In 5th place at 16 seconds, McEwen and Rowlands, but Cadel Evans launched himself as a challenger. He sits in 7th place.
It's a long stage today, Phil, and it will be very difficult in the first part. The first half of the race is quite undulating. We should see a very aggressive race. And if anybody is going to be aggressive, it's this man, big Jens Voigt, always up for an attack.
And what about this man?
Well, whatever you think about this man's comeback, Phil, he is extremely popular still with the crowds anywhere in the world.
Alejandro, yesterday you proved that this race is not necessarily going to be dominated by sprinters, and your team was doing a lot of work in the final circuits.
Bueno, sí, ayer era un día, pues eso, una llegada.
No, it's a really hard circuit yesterday, a very demanding finish. Given the circumstances and given the race as it was, we had to try. The team did a great job to try to pull it off, but we couldn't pull off the stage.
No, but it was a great effort by Case Dupont. Maybe today they'll try again on the Mutual Community 4th stage as we now leave Norwood heading for Goolwa. Early climb, Paul, top of Fox Creek as we leave town, and then a couple of sprints and then expected strong winds on the running.
Yes, I think the riders will be quite satisfied that the temperature has come down, but they will, I think, get a little bit shocked by the strong winds down towards the finish.
Well, Norwood, home of the oldest cycling club in Australia, I believe, as we now leave town. A long utilised section, 11 kilometres. There's flashes of lightning around and threat of rain, but basically it is extremely hot today.
Yes, I think we can face up, Phil, to a very hardly contested race today because a lot of these riders want to toughen up the event for tomorrow's ascent of Wollonga Hill. Lance Armstrong here chatting to his former teammate on the far side, American national champion George Hincapie.
So the field's still pretty much intact. Just 3 riders have stopped on the way so far as we get through to the halfway stage and head into the second half of the race now. The big challenge tomorrow is the old Wollonga Hill, and I'm just wondering how they'll tackle this today. Will they try to conserve their energies or take a little bit of confidence from the bashing they gave Greipel yesterday?
Well, I think with the windy conditions down towards the finish, there will be attacks. So here's an attack coming almost again right from the gun. I expected it to be number 1, 2, 3, Phil, because he's been on the attack a number of times since the start on these stages, but in fact it's his teammate, and this is Jonathan Castroviejo.
Well, 1, 2, 2 in fact. Well, I have to say that if there was a prize for the most aggressive team in the early part of every stage, it would go to the Basque team Euskaltel Euskadi, because as Paul has said, they've launched an attack at the start of every stage, and it looks like they may be getting themselves into what we often call the early morning breakaway, as 5 riders are starting to get themselves together. I can also see the last rider getting across down there is David Kemp, who features in the King of the Mountains, and Thomas Roeriger, the leader of that competition, is also in this breakaway, so that's an interesting move here. Time for a quick break as stage 4 continues. We'll be right back. Well, there's the breakaway, familiar territory. If you wind away up Kangaroo Creek, heading towards the top, which is Fox Creek, and this really is a stunningly beautiful road.
Very rapid start there. It looked as if there were two riders just about to join that leading group of 5 to make a 7-man group, but you can see the main field, Phil, are not letting them go too far off the front end because they were fairly organised. In fact, it's reinforcements coming from behind, and this rider here from BMC is a rider who is extremely important in the overall classification. That's Thomas Fry, and also getting himself on there as well. Another rider from Euskadi, that's Miguel Minguez.
Well, we've got Steph Clement, far side for Rabobank. Anthony Revard, the Frenchman from AG2R's in there. Rohriger, best placed. He's only 20 seconds behind overall on Greipel. And we've got the two riders, including Miguel Ningen from the Euskadi and David Kemp. He was the last boy to latch on the original break. There's Kemp sitting just to the back, and there's all the names for you as we now climb up the dizzy heights towards Kangaroo Creek Reservoir now. They're flying up this hill, Paul. You wouldn't think this was a serious climb. We are motoring at around about 32 kilometres an hour.
Well, Thomas Rohriger is the man who's got the most to gain from that leading group, but you can see immediately control at the front end of the main field by HTC Columbia. They don't want any moves to get too far off the front end, and if you look at the length of that main field, that's a serious indication that they've got a lot of pressure on the front end of the pack.
Well, no surprises to find the top two riders in the Skoda King of the Mountains competition in the breakaway, looking for the move early today, because after we top Fox Creek, it's undulations to flatlands and down towards the ocean at Goolwa. As we come up towards the summit now, right on the front, the white Skoda leader's jersey, just setting the pace is Steph Clement, and right on the back wheel of Rohriger, but can't go with him, is David Kemp, second overall. Rohriger, who won the Tour of Austria last year, is a very good climber, and he's shown a clean pair of wheels, so he will in fact increase his lead in this competition. Kemp, I hope, will hang on to second and keep running him close. But there's no doubt that Rohriger, 27 years of age, Paul, is riding very well this year for his new team of Milram.
Well, that was a mean acceleration there. It wasn't going to take any prisoners at all. They didn't want to leave in doubt who was going to be the fastest to the top, and he will extend his lead overall in that competition. But I think what's happening right now is we're also starting to see that these riders are extending their lead over the front end of the main field. And if they can start to build on that advantage, well, it's going to make a little bit of a long chase for the peloton behind.
Well done, David Kemp. He's second overall in that competition now, but this powerhouse effort by the Austrian left nothing to the imagination. And just look at the crowd. This isn't a renter crowd, but they appear on the top of every hill on every day of racing. Now they're over the top of the climb as they get together. It's up to them now. It's still an awful long way to go. Just on 2.5 minutes the gap. Time for a quick break on the Epic Cycle presented by Michelob Ultra. Well, we're looking down at a speeding peloton here. They're keeping control of those 7 leaders. This is the biggest gap they've had of 3 minutes, as we're now at 93 kilometres into the race.
This is making it feel a very tough stage for everybody involved. Obviously, the 7 riders at the front, they've all been sharing the pacemaking to keep themselves that advantage. But in the main field, they've been riding at a very heavy tempo very much since this break started.
Through the field, and that was David Kemp throwing his little musette off to the public. And I must say, the most dangerous man in this breakaway, Paul, is Thomas Rohriger. He's only 20 seconds off the ochre jersey of Andre Greipel. We're coming up here in Langhorne Creek for the Jayco Sprint, and I think he'll go for the seconds here because he's in a real good position, and that's why the field are not allowing them to go. Good attack here by the AG2R rider Ravard, the Frenchman. He is the sprinter in the group, and he's going to show them that now. He's chased by David Kemp, the silver medalist in the Australian Road Championships just a week ago. And Rohriger in the middle, just look at his desperation here. Well, he's going to have to settle for 1 second, but 1 second's better than none.
It certainly is. It pulls you that little bit closer to the top of the overall classification. You can see here, though, Phil, this is an easy win for Ravard, ahead of Kemp in second position there. But lunging for the line, you can see Rohriger was very, very desperate to try and get himself at least a second time bonus.
Well, until now, the wind has been favourable with the riders, as we see HTC Columbia here keeping tempo in defence of Greipel. Remember, he defends that 14-second overnight lead on 3 riders. And now, of course, Rohriger is moving in. He's only 19 seconds back of the ochre jersey, plus his escape on the road just now. So they've still got a couple of minutes, and they're still looking for another sprint, which comes at Malang, and then the wind will change direction, and then we're going to see a whole different bike race, I think. There's the main field, shoulder to shoulder. As the race now continues, the lead is down to 1 minute and 15 seconds. Look at those trees, Paul. They're bending now. These boys are being pushed from left to right as we look at them.
Yes, it's a very long straight road as well, so by now the main field will be able to judge just exactly what the distance is between themselves and this leading group of 7 riders. I think what they will try and do now is try and judge when they make the connection with this leading group, and that keeps a little bit of calm in the main field. A different team coming to the front now, though. You can see it's the new colours of Team Radio Shack. I would think that would be for Gert Stegemans. He's the sprinter on Lance Armstrong's team, and disappearing from the front is HTC Columbia, letting somebody else do the pacemaking.
Yes, well, if they sense other teams are prepared to work, why not take a little bit of a time off? Just setting the pace there's Jason McCartney for the Radio Shack team. These boys being cheered all the way as they approach Malang here now, the scene of the second and final sprint of the day, and 114 kilometres covered. They got away after 1 kilometre, so they've had a long day in the saddle. You can get the wind direction by the diagonal line. It's coming top right corner now. David Kemp is lining up on the wheel of Roy Rigger. Roy Rigger again wants these few seconds just in case all the cards drop in the right order on the table at 200 metres. Watch Ref Hard at the back, or is he not going to bother with it? I don't think he is here, because it looks as though Roy Rigger is going to take this from the front if he can. This boy is turning out to be a good climber and a very fast sprinter. Now that is 3 seconds bonus. He's gone over ahead of Kemp and Fry.
Let's have a look at this from a different angle there. You can see the acceleration. Kemp over on the left-hand side. He's got a lot of power, Roy Rigger, and that's going to give his tally for the day to 4 seconds, and that's going to make him leap up the overall classification tonight.
It's put him now 16 seconds behind Greipel. Of course, he's the leader on the road right now, while we have a time gap over the field. But we're now into the winds. It's head and it's cross, and it's getting rather hard.
Robbie McEwen's team coming to the front now, Team Katusha. Robbie, in fact, has been improving from day to day, I have to say, Phil, since the very first stage of the Santos Tour Down Under, and he may be wondering whether or not he can get himself a stage victory this afternoon.
Now these boys are showing no passengers. They're all working nicely together. A little bit of pace at the front, and then they're dropping back. They've got 2 riders in here for Euskaltel Euskadi, so they've always got, and there's a split, because now obviously there were passengers developing.
Well, this is a rather interesting split, because the main field are probably not very much more than 40 or 50 seconds behind, and these riders now, Phil, are going to prolong the agony, and may well, because Rohrig has disappeared, have a chance of survival.
So Kemp has gone clear with 2 other riders. Can Australia at last get a stage victory? Just time for one final break. The finish when we come back. Welcome back to the epic cycle presented by Michelob Ultra and the 12th edition of the Santos Tour Down Under. Well, it's all over. The last man to be brought back of the 7, Steph Clement of Rabobank, and Radio Shack are driving the train.
Well, it's a red and grey jerseys at the front. They really are putting the pressure on. A little bit reminiscent, Phil, of the Tour de France last year, when Lance Armstrong didn't miss out on the split on the road down to the Grand Mont.
Number 1 there, Alan Davis, last year's champion, hanging on to the coattails just now. Look at the wind now. 10 kilometres to go. It really is hard, and this is a surprise. Vekas has gone, Armstrong has joined him, and they've gone clear.
Well, they've got themselves about a 15-second advantage over the front end of the main field, and I think that will really rock the foundations of some people's confidence, because this is a very interesting move inside of 10 kilometres to go. Armstrong there, number 11, his teammate, number 16, Thomas Vekas, who is a very good sprinter, but also a massive powerhouse.
Well, they're working well together. I'm not sure about the wiseness of this move, because these roads are so unforgiving and they're perfectly straight. They're never out of sight of the peloton. Vekas, remember, came across from Astana with Armstrong. He's been with him for a couple of seasons, and now the field here, I would think, Paul, they're a little confused. They would never have expected this.
I think shocked. 23 seconds advantage for the 2 leaders from Radio Shack, and yes, they're probably not quite sure what they want to do here, because it's not very often that they've seen Lance Armstrong make a move like this at the end of a flat stage.
Searching for big form. Tomorrow is the big race up on the old Wollonga Hill, but today Armstrong is trying to repair the damage of just a few seconds lost. If he gains just a few seconds, of course, he'll go out tomorrow in the ochre jersey. I think that's a little bit too much to ask, because the head of the peloton, HTC Columbia in particular, have got themselves on the front. It's over.
Well, looking over the shoulders, it was a great move by these 2 riders. They really got the alarm bells ringing at the front end of the main field, but you've got to be an extremely tough, strong bike rider to outfox the slick train of HTC Columbia.
Armstrong looking back at the riders again, this time not inviting them to attack as he once did on Alpe d'Huez. He's put his head down again. The gap is there, about 10 seconds, I think.
Well, I tell you what, they haven't pulled them back into the fold just yet, Phil, and in fact the main field are spreading across the road. That's an indication that the power is going out of the chase of the peloton. This could be rather an interesting move.
It's caused a lot of consternation. I don't know if you saw that rider on the front of the peloton for Case de Palma. He was actually indicating, come on, give us a hand. We're 5 kilometres from the line here. It's a dead straight run into the line, and they know exactly where they're going now.
As you can see, Vickers, the top half of his body rocking and rolling there. He's trying to find every last little bit of energy to keep the pressure on at the front end of the main field. But there are the Cowboys and Indians getting back together. And in fact, it's the Futon team from Italy who's got to the front now. And they may well be thinking about their sprinter, Cardoso.
Well, it was a nice show of bravado, but it wasn't the day to try and move like that. The wind is horrendous now, and I think if we get to the back of this field, we will see the riders starting to lose contact because it is ripping through the field, and everybody is just hanging on in there now as they're lining up for the finish. They'll be into town in no time, and the finish is on the same road.
Well, currently there's no real organisation. There's Greipel in the second row there in the ochre jersey of leadership. He's looking for his teammates. Looks like Bernard Eisel just in front of him. There's a couple of riders from Radio Shack. This time they'll be looking after Herr Stegemans. But there's nobody really, Phil, got complete control at the front end of the main field. Everybody's waiting and biding their time.
A little bit of a rush through on the outside here, being led here by Team Sky. That's David Vigano. And all of the big teams again trying to put riders onto the front that matter. Stein Vandenberg is also up here too. For Team Katusha, he's looking for McEwen. This man surprised us yesterday, Cadel Evans, and I think now he's got his tail up as well. He is the best placed and poised to strike tomorrow.
Well, he'll be thinking about the time that going up Gwalunga Hill tomorrow, Phil. I've got to tell you, he's got great form. I think he's actually surprised himself with the form that he's got. And if he's on a great day on Gwalunga Hill, he could take the overall lead in this race. But now the train has started. HTC Columbia, this train we've seen perfect itself over the last couple of days.
Well, looking at the way they've got themselves lined out at the front now, it's going to be a formality here, because right at the back of them is the ochre jersey there of Andre Greipel, who got the first 2 stages, outwitted yesterday by the Portuguese champion Cardoso, but now they're going off one by one and Greipel is poised.
Well, look at the argy-bargy there in about 5th or 6th position. That's going to be Graham Brown. He wants the wheel of Robbie McEwen, who's right in front of him. In front of McEwen in the red jerseys, Herr Stegemans. In front of him, of course, is the German champion Greipel.
Now it's opened up and coming through on the inside, the final charge. Matt Gott is leading him out, and now goes Greipel, being chased all the way by Stegmans. Greipel is going to have to dig deep for this one. Brown is there, McEwen was there, but no doubt who was first. Greipel has got his 3rd stage win and has got it clearly.
Well, he's going to be extending his lead in the overall classification, but watch out for Robbie McEwen, Phil, because McEwen, starting the sprint here in 5th place, is getting closer and closer to the win. Look at the acceleration on the right-hand side of Graham Brown as well in the orange jersey of Rabobank, but nobody at the moment can really rival the last lunge to the line by Andre Greipel as he goes across the road there to get himself that next stage victory and, of course, extend his lead in the overall classification.
Well, all the sprinters are in there, and also in there too was Cardoso on the right of our picture. 5th or 6th for him on the line there. Greipel gets the win. Let's have a look. There's the gap. Another length victory, and all of the other sprinters throw a blanket over them. McEwen, Henderson and Stegmans in that order. Manuel Cardoso was 5th, Julian Dean was 6th, but the man of the day again, Greipel.
Andre, once again, what an incredible performance, not only by yourself but the whole team.
Yeah, the whole team. We said before that it's crosswind to the finish, so we had to fight to get to the front, and we did. In the last 5Ks we always rode from the front and no one could pass us.
Well, that was quite apparent today. Andre Greipel, 3 wins out of 4 possible. McEwen is coming back to form. He was in 2nd place. This is the overall situation now. Just 20 seconds back to McEwen. Into 3rd, Henderson at 24. Stegmans is there. All sprinters. Cadel Evans still remains a big challenger here, and this was a cheeky move today, wasn't it, by Lance?
I was going to say exactly the same thing. It wasn't really planned, but I think it really was impressive.
Well, Lance, that was a very tricky situation out there with the weather conditions, but for the first time you went out and stretched your legs a bit.
Yeah, we knew obviously that it was windy, and that even this stage last year was really, really windy. I think this was equivalent. And of course you knew the last 10 miles or so was going to be most likely crosswind, so we tried to stay in the front. and go just before that, and then Thomas just went and then kept going and kept going, and then we turned around and it was just the two of us. But yeah, it was a good effort. I mean, maybe not the best outcome.
Well, now let's look at the Michelob Ultra ride of the day, and it goes to Thomas Rohregger, the Austrian, who really did take the race to the leaders today. He consolidated his lead in the King of the Mountains competition, and for a while was the virtual leader of this race on the road. So Thomas Rohregger, the Michelob Ultra ride of the day. That wraps it up for Stage 4. Be sure to check out Lance Armstrong, The Next Chapter. A one-on-one interview with Paul Sherwin tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's followed by our Stage 5 coverage right here on Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra. For a full cycling schedule, log on to our website at versus.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at VS Cycling. For Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett saying so long for now.